My neighbor is getting creepy. So some time ago, the woman who lived a few houses down fell down the stairs and died. After that, her family inherited the house. The woman's daughter is a cat hoarder, and her granddaughter is autistic. We are not sure how old the autistic girl is. She may be anywhere between 15 and 25. So the cats are an issue, because the mom just lets them run free and shit everywhere, but that is the least of my concerns at the moment. When they first moved in, my husband had his first encounter with the autistic neighbor. She ran up to him and hugged him while crying and saying she was sad. He asked her if she needed help, and she started talking about something totally unrelated. He understood that she had some kind of learning disability and continued on his walk with the dog. This is the only encounter he had had until today, which we will get to in a moment after some more background information. I ran into her next, when she came and slapped me in the head. I told her, "Do not touch me," in a very serious tone. She backed off and I was defensive, in a standing my ground kind of way, not aggressive on my side. "I'm sorry, autistic or not, no one is going to slap me," so I wasn't going to back off and have her do it again. I contacted her mother about this, and she said she was sorry and explained her daughter was autistic. Look, I have had contact with other neurodivergent people and never have gotten a weird vibe from them. This girl gave me weird vibes since the slapping. The next time I ran into her was when I was walking my friend down to her car around 3 a.m. We have 2 doors where we live, a door inside and a security gate outside. The space between the doors is enough for you to stand between them in an uncomfortable manner. As I was walking my friend down, she noticed her standing there between the doors in the dark, with her hair kind of covering her face and staring at a wall. She mentions that was creepy as fuck, which I agreed to, and we both hurried to get away from whatever was happening. I work nights, so I started to see her out at like 1 to 3 a.m. frequently because I take my dog down to pee when I'm done working. Once I saw her trying to open a car, and she started hiding behind the car and watching me. I think she thought I couldn't see her, but I was watching her out of the corner of my eye. Then another time, I walked the dog down and saw her doing the creepy door stare thing. I wasn't really watching her this time because I thought she was locked in, so when I walked back up to my house, I didn't know she had gotten out and was hiding behind a car again. She started running after me saying, hey, come here." I ran. I in fact did not want to find out what she wanted. I was able to get in my house in time and basically shut the door in her face. This last thing happened maybe like a week ago. That's when I told my husband that she was creeping me out. I said she appeared to be harmful. I actually feel threatened by her. Keep in mind my husband has not had contact with her since the first time with the crying. He told me maybe I was being paranoid, and she's just a little girl with a problem. Then I felt bad about it. She keeps on coming around the house. I got really sick about 6 months ago, and had to go to the hospital ASAP. My husband wasn't home, and I couldn't take my kid to the ER and keep an eye on him while I was having an asthma attack. He's 10. It's legal to leave kids that age alone at home here. It was an emergency. I gave him a phone to call me if anything transpired. He called me. He said the girl was outside banging on the door and ringing the doorbell while she's taking my shoes and wearing them around the front yard, grabbing everything. So I'm like actively low on oxygen while my kid is being harassed at the house. I told him to make sure the door has the deadbolt on it and to not open it. After I made sure he was safe, I wrote in the neighborhood chat and basically said, "Get your kid off my property. I'm in the hospital, and she's trying to get in with my child inside." She left. I mean, I'm sorry, I can't even die in peace. I got nebulized with antibiotics and went home. After this, she started coming over to wear my shoes while she went around the neighborhood. Yesterday, she came to my house again. I noticed because the shoes were moved. I have since installed a camera. I went and looked back at the video. She started to play with some tile I had outside and took off with my shoes again. I told her mom again. This time I said, "I don't know if you know, but your child is out between 1 and 3 a.m. roaming the street, and she's also coming and using my shoes, which are a personal item. Please keep an eye on her. She could get hurt playing with tile. It's dangerous." Today is when the really creepy stuff happened. So we had a food delivery man arrive. My husband opened the door and greeted him. She just walks up from around the corner of the car, all holding some food by 2 fingers. She walks right past the delivery man and starts to come inside the house. My husband blocks the door with his body as she's trying to get by aggressively, going left to right trying to get around him. The delivery man is just looking at us shocked. My husband is saying bye to her various times. She's not leaving. She starts sniffing him, like close to him. She hands him the food various times until he takes it, then starts asking, "What are you going to name it?" He says IDK, and then she starts backing off, but not before growling in the delivery man's face, right in his grill, while making like a twisted face. So my husband had not met this side of this girl. I'm wondering if it's some kind of other mental disorder or possession at this point. I know it's mean, but honestly, this was scary. It was like something that would happen in The Conjuring. I don't know if we should report this. I don't even know if it would matter if she's a minor. I think she's playing people by acting like a child, but really is a bad person. She's obviously stalking the house because she tried to get in to get my kid. I'm so glad he called me and didn't open the door. I feel bad for leaving him. My husband agreed with me today that there's something seriously wrong with her. The mom doesn't seem to care. Moving into the next Reddit story. A woman thinks something weird is going on in my apartment building. Sometime last week, I was on my way home from work. It was 8 to 9 p.m. when I walked the last stretch from the bus stop to my building when this woman approached me. She pointed down the road towards my building and said, "Something strange is going on at my address." Ooh, okay. And what might that be? That's the strangest thing about it. Nobody knows. But something very, very strange is going on at my address. She repeated the last part a couple of times. Then she talked about reporters from one of my country's big newspapers or the public broadcast channel snooping around. She speculated about the apartment owners being involved in rental fraud or something, all while continuously repeating that something weird is going on at my address. At this point, I told her I needed to get going and left. When I entered my building, I made sure she didn't see me, and once I was in my apartment, I waited for half an hour before turning on the lights in the room that faces the road. I was pretty freaked out, especially since last summer 2 officers from the criminal police rang my doorbell to ask whether I knew anything about my next-door neighbors. I didn't, and they left. Next time I went out, I noticed that the police had left a letter at my neighbor's door, which was gone after about a week. IDK, what happened? Realistically, it's completely unrelated to this strange woman, but she really freaked me out that night, and my anxiety was running full throttle. When I was back home after this encounter, I texted my sister and my friends, and together we managed to calm down my anxiety. Eventually, I had myself convinced that this was probably a one-off. Even though I seriously considered a connection with the encounter with the police, her somehow sensing a body in my building. I listened to too much true crime, and there's a couple of stories of someone smelling or noticing something nobody else did. Everyone thought they were crazy, but turns out there was in fact a body hidden somewhere in their building. Or maybe even something paranormal. I know paranormal stuff isn't allowed in this sub, but I feel like I need to at least mention that I considered it because, well, anxiety was running wild, and those are the things my thoughts were spinning around. Nevertheless, I calmed down, and me and my friends convinced my brain that most likely this woman is either mentally ill, on drugs, or both. Over the course of a week, I eventually stopped thinking about her, until a couple of days ago. Again, I was on my way home from work. I think it was roughly 7 to 8 p.m. This time she didn't approach me, but she was standing in the main entrance to my building. She was holding the door open and standing right on the doorstep and talking to someone on the phone. Once I recognized her, my anxiety was back at 100. I didn't dare talking to her. I didn't even dare acknowledging her. I just kept my headphones on, pretended I didn't know her, and climbed the stairs. Once I was sure she couldn't see me anymore, I moved my headphones so I could hear her. I didn't understand anything, though. I did hear a neighbor's voice, then hers, but then I was at my apartment door, and still being stuck in the pretend nothing wrong or weird is going on mode, I just went in and closed the door behind me. This time I again waited for a while until I did anything. I stayed at the door and listened, but first there was quiet, and a little later I heard a neighboring family climb the stairs. At this point I thought to myself, okay dude, this is crazy, just go about your evening. Again, I did all I could to forget about this, but a stranger talking weird stuff somewhere on the road is a totally different ballpark to the same stranger showing up at the building I live in. It's low-key freaking me out. Over the past days, I've been wondering whether I'll see her again and what to do. Do I talk to her and tell her to leave my apartment building in peace? Do I try to find out more of why she thinks something weird is going on and what that might be according to her? Do I call the police? Should I call my therapist to talk things through? Should I talk to a legal counselor? Or maybe to my neighbors? Or should I go on with trying to keep myself convinced this lady is most likely just mentally ill and or on drugs? I don't really like this option though. Most mentally ill drug people are harmless, but some are dangerous, or might cause serious trouble of a different sort. This woman, now knowing that I live in this building, doesn't help to calm down my anxiety. I don't know whether she recognized me. I'm autistic, and I can't really read faces, so there's no way for me to tell whether she had any reaction to me walking past her. In any case, this is freaking me out. Well, that was creepy, but now let's move into the next Reddit story. My Uber driver came back over an hour later, over a drink. For context, I am a 25-year-old female who lives alone. So this happened a while ago, and I still think about how weird and honestly scary it was. I ordered Uber Eats, food and a drink to my apartment. I live in a gated complex, so when the driver arrives, I open the gate, let them in, and then close it again once they leave. Everything seemed normal. I let the driver in, they dropped the order at my door, and I opened the gate again so they could leave. When I grabbed my order, only the food was there and no drink. I was annoyed, but it happens sometimes, and assumed the restaurant had just forgotten to give it to the driver, so I just sat down and ate. After I finished eating my food, I went on the app to report the missing drink so I could get a refund, and that's when I noticed I had missed calls and voice messages from the driver. The first voicemail was already a bit weird. He just says, "Hello? Hello? Are you there, girl?" and then trails off like he's stressed. The second voicemail is about 9 seconds of silence, and then he quietly says to himself, "I just don't know what to do anymore, man." At that point I'm thinking, okay, that's a bit odd, but maybe he realized he forgot my drink and is stressing about it. Then I listen to the third voicemail, and the tone is completely different. After a few seconds he says, with attitude, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna assume you just don't want your drink." About an hour and a half later, I'm on the phone with a friend telling them about the voicemails, when suddenly I hear aggressive banging on my front door. Like bang bang bang, as loud as someone possibly could. I froze because I live alone, and as a woman that instantly put me on edge. I slowly walked up to the door, and before I could even process it, it happened again, just as loud and aggressive. I called out, "Hello?" through the door, but I did not open it. Then in a much quieter, almost timid voice, which honestly made it creepier compared to the banging, he says, "I'm your Uber driver, I've got your drink." At that point I was genuinely freaked out. I told him through the door that I had already reported the drink missing in the app, and didn't think I could change it. I told him through the door to just leave it at the door. I didn't want to open it because I was scared and didn't feel comfortable. I waited and opened the gate so he could leave the complex, and I checked and watched him walk through the gate to make sure that he actually left the complex. I still don't understand how he even got back into a gated complex over an hour later. And I don't understand why he was so fixated on this drink that he came back that long after the order was finished. I also didn't drink the smoothie. The whole situation made me so uncomfortable. The way he came back, how determined he was to give it to me, and just the overall vibe he was giving off made me paranoid he might have done something to it, so I threw it out. I don't even know if this fully explains how weird his energy was. The talking to himself, the sudden aggression, and the way he seemed almost angry at me over something as small as forgetting a drink just felt really off. I never reported him because I was honestly scared he'd know and come back. He knew where I lived and somehow got back into a locked complex. Even posting this now kind of freaks me out. Part of me is like, what if he somehow sees this and comes back? Do you think this is safe for me to be posting? Or should I take it down? Also, this happened a few months ago. Do you think I should still make a report now? Or would that be unsafe to do at this point? If you think that was scary, wait for the next Reddit story. I worked with a creep for a week and knew. I'm 22, but I frequently get mistaken for being 15 or 16. This is important to the story. I won't bother making up a name either. His name was Nick, and he came to work with us maybe a week ago. From the moment I laid eyes on him, I knew I hated him and did not want him anywhere near me. Unfortunately, that's exactly where he wanted to be all the time. Now, he didn't initially give me a reason to hate him, and I even felt bad about hating him in the beginning. Nick was very nice to everyone, very polite. He had a cheerful attitude every day at work. He greeted people, asked how they were doing, tried to make jokes, and he'd send texts in our work chat about how excited he was to work with all of us. Personally, I felt that he was too cheery for work, and that was one of the things that I found unsettling for some reason. He always wanted to talk to me for some reason, and I was polite and nothing more toward him. I would give him short answers to all his questions, and that conversation would end there. I genuinely wanted nothing to do with him, and yet he didn't seem to get the hint. Every time I was on break and he happened to either be also on break or about to clock in, he'd come over to my table and sit with me, which I always hated. In my mind, I'd be telling him to get far away from me, but I never did. I didn't have a reason to, so I just looked like an asshole if I did. I never made eye contact with Nick either. It always felt uncomfortable. It's hard to explain, but there was just something about looking into his eyes that felt off. He was just too nice, if that makes sense. He always wanted to talk to me. He was always standing near my station in the kitchen. He always tried to sit with me. And when I would have conversations with my friends, Nick would just insert himself where he didn't belong. If I waved to a friend, Nick would also try to wave to me. If I high-fived a friend, Nick would also want a high five. And begrudgingly, I would give him one because I didn't know how to get out of it. Nick always followed the rules to a T as well. However, this was less about being good at his job and more about not getting in trouble. In his words, I'm on probation, so I can't lose my job. Haha. That sentence felt unsettling coming from him too. Now, a lot of my coworkers have been to jail for a multitude of reasons, and I love all of them. But from Nick, it made my stomach turn. Now this brings us to 2 days ago. I was on break and I saw my 18-year-old coworker, who I'll call Emma, because I actually value her privacy, sitting with Nick. I'm sure she had sat down first, because she always sits in the same spot, and Nick had probably sat down with her without asking, as that was a habit of his. I sat down at a different table, and Emma was quick to grab my attention, asking if I watched Doctor Who. I love Doctor Who, so I stood at her table and talked with her about it for a good 10 minutes, ignoring Nick the entire time. I didn't look at him and I disregarded everything he said in an attempt to join the conversation. Again, I hated this guy. Normally it takes a lot to make me hate someone, but all he had to do was walk into the building. And maybe I didn't notice it in the moment, but looking back, I think she wanted to talk to me because Nick was making her uncomfortable. When I clocked back in from my break, it took me a couple hours, but I eventually noticed that Nick never clocked in for his shift. I turned to one of my friends and asked, "Wasn't Nick scheduled for the grill today? Where is he?" "Oh, he got fired. He was creeping on one of the 16-year-olds in the ice cream section." I immediately felt so vindicated. I was right about him the entire time. Something inside me knew he was a creep. I also got the added context from a manager, who technically wasn't supposed to tell me, that Nick had 6 accounts of pedophilia on his record. How he got hired to a place that has minors as a third of their staff, instead of being in prison, I have no idea. Every bone in my body knew to hate this scumbag from the very beginning. I no longer feel bad about how cold I was to him, or about ignoring him all the time when he tried to talk to me. Now, because I look so young, I can't help but wonder if that's why Nick was so interested in talking to me all the damn time. He went after a 16-year-old who works with us, and I constantly have people assuming I'm close to that age, the assumption usually ranging from 15 to 17. Honestly, that makes me sick. I really wish I had been there when he made that poor girl uncomfortable, and I wish I could have done or said something, but at least he got fired, and I can only hope that he goes to jail soon. So guys, what did you think? Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. See you next time.